past, okay? So we've learned the preterite, which was what, like when I said I went to my grandma's or I visited the store. Okay, this is going to tell me something that used to happen. Okay, so first let's fill in the blanks up here. The imperfect verbs, it does not have a beginning or an end. Okay, there is no time frame on this verb. So when I say I used to visit my grandma, it doesn't say like when that happened. It gives the idea that it happened more than once. When we translate a verb that's in the imperfect, it translates as used to or would. Like I used to visit my grandma or I would visit my grandma. We use the imperfect to tell time, date, age, and weather. So anytime we're telling time in the past tense, we use the imperfect verb. If we're telling the date, like ayer era, okay, and then you say the date, sorry. If you're talking about age, we use the verb tener with age, like tengo 15 años, but if I'm describing in the past, I say tenía 15 años. And anytime we talk about weather in the past, like hacía buen tiempo or hacía mal tiempo, okay, we would use the imperfect. And lastly, we use the imperfect because it describes people, places, and things. So anytime we're describing what somebody looked like they were tall, they were short, they were cute, they were ugly, whatever, and we're describing in the past, okay, we use the imperfect. So the first verbs that we're going to talk about are these endings here. So let's talk about the AR verbs. So the endings are aba, abas, aba, abamos, and aban. Please exaggerate the accent that's on the we form. So you might notice that two of those match. The jo and the el have the same forms. So what we have to do is we have to use the subject pronouns to clarify who is doing the verb. So if I use the verb nadar, I say yo nadaba, or I say él nadaba. Okay, so I have to use the subject pronoun to clarify. And the we form is the only one that has an accent in the AR verbs. So again, that's aba, abas, aba, abamos, and aban. Okay, the other ones that we have are the ER and IR. They have the exact same endings. And we have ia, ias, ia, iamos, ian. Each one of those have accents on the I's. Every one of those. You might notice that the yo and the el form are the same. So if I say yo comía una hamburguesa or él comía una hamburguesa, the way I tell the difference is the word has the yo or the el in front of it. So you got to use the subject pronouns to clarify who's doing the verb. And all forms have accents on the I's. So let's take a second and let's read out the AR verbs first. Okay, read those with me. Aba, abas, aba, abamos, aban. And now read them with me. Aba, abas, aba, abamos, aban. And let's do the ER-IR ones. Here we go. I'll say it, then you repeat it. Ia, ias, ia, iamos, ian. Let's read it together. Ia, ias, ia, iamos, ian. Okay. So we're going to have to add those endings to these verbs. So the first one we're going to do here is the verb llorar. And llorar means to cry. So write that down. There's a place for it. So first thing I need you to do is drop the AR, and then you add the aba to it. So yo lloraba, tú llorabas, él lloraba, nosotros llorábamos with an accent on the A, and ellos lloraban. So please exaggerate the accent on the A, and in front of lloraba on the top, write yo, and on the third one down there, where it says lloraba again, write él. So yo lloraba and él lloraba. We are going to write the subject pronouns in front of the ones that match. So what does it mean in English? Okay, so if I say yo lloraba, what would that mean? So it's got to have used to or would in the definition. So it's either I used to cry or I would cry. Write one of those down. So if I say tú llorabas, what would that one be? That's right. You used to cry or you would cry. Choose one of those and write it down. And the last one is él lloraba, and that would be he used to cry or he would cry. So if you've written used to on the first two, write would on the third one. Okay, so at least one of them needs to have the would. Let's look at the next verb. Okay, the next verb we're going to do is the verb comer. Comer means to eat. So we have yo comía, tú comías, él comía, nosotros comíamos, and ellos comían. You need to make sure you have an accent on every one of the I's. Exaggerate so you don't miss it. And please write the yo in front of yo comía and write the él in front of él comía. So let's write down what they actually mean when we use the imperfect. So what is nosotros comíamos? What does that one mean? That's right. We used to eat or we would eat. Okay, so we used to or we would eat. Okay, the next one says ellos comían. What would that one mean? Ellos. So they used to eat or they would eat. And the last one is going to be yo comía, and that would be I used to or would eat. So please make sure that used to and would is used on at least one of the definitions, okay? So it might be two and one. Okay, the last one we're going to be using here is the verb morir and morirse. Sorry, we're going to add a se to ours, morirse. And that means to die of fright, morirse de miedo, to be scared to death, okay? And we'll want that phrase for our legend that we're going to tell later. So we have to add the me, te, se in front of it. So anytime we have a reflexive verb, we move the se to the front, and we add the me, te, se, no se. So this would be yo me moría. And tú te morías. And él se moría. And nosotros nos moríamos. And ellos se morían. So we definitely want to have the accents on all the I's. And then I'm going to ask you guys to write that phrase up there where it says morirse de miedo. Add that de miedo at the end of your phrase there. And that means to be scared to death. So if I say tú te morías, that would be you used to be scared to death or you used to die of fright, okay? Literally it says to die of fright, but we're talking about the phrase to be scared to death. If I said ella se moría de miedo, she used to be scared to death or she would be scared to death. And the last one, nosotros nos moríamos de miedo, we would be scared to death or we would die of fright, okay? That phrase die of fright is what it literally means. We're using the be scared to death. So let's talk about the next part of using a verb in the past tense. In the preterite, we had verb cues like ayer or anteayer, okay? We're going to have a different set of verb cues for the imperfect. It says, pay attention. I'm about to tell you something that used to happen more than once in the past, okay? So when we see one of these verb cues, we know it's going to be in the imperfect. So the first one right here, it says every day. Okay, that'd be todos los días, accent on the I. Every week, todas las semanas. Each day, cada día, accent on the I. Each month, cada mes. As a child, de niño, or if you're a girl, de niña. When I was little, cuando era pequeño, or if you're a girl, pequeña. So when we see these at the beginning of a sentence, okay, then we know we're about to use the imperfect. Just like when we used to see the word yesterday or last week in front of a sentence, we knew that was going to be in the preterite. All right, the next set, and we'll come back if we need to, but the next set is generally, once in a while, many times, sometimes, always, and never. So generally, it's generalmente. Once in a while is de vez en cuando. Many times is muchas veces. Sometimes is a veces. Always is siempre. And never is nunca. So we're going to get in the habit of putting these at the beginning of a sentence to kind of set the mood that this will be in the imperfect. The last thing I want to do on this video is to complete some examples that are on the back here. These are going to be using regular verbs in the imperfect. So we're going to kind of practice telling a legend here. So it says, every year, the hero would fight an enemy. So looking back at those verb cues, what is the word phrase for every year? Todos los años, okay? So todos los años. And what is the word for the hero in Spanish? El héroe. So todos los años, el héroe. And so now we're saying would fight. So we need to conjugate the verb pelear for el héroe. So drop that AR, and what do we plug in for the he form? So is it aba, abas, aba, abamos, or aban? Aba, that's right. So peleaba un enemigo, a un enemigo. Todos los años, el héroe peleaba a un enemigo. The reason we have that extra A in after peleaba is because un enemigo is a person. So we have a personal A. Okay, the phrase for once in a while. De vez en cuando, la princesa estaba enamorada con un guerrero. Once in a while, the princess would be in love with a warrior. So we conjugate estar by putting it estaba. So that's in the she form. Continuing our story. If you need to go back later and look, we can, okay? But I'm just going to continue, and then we'll go back and look at it. The emperor of the Aztecs, he would live in the mountains. So remember, when we say it, we're going to say the emperor of the Aztecs. So that'd be what's an emperor? Emperador de los, what's an Aztec? Azteca. El emperador de los Aztecas. So he would live. So this is the verb vivir. So what's the he form of vivir? Vivía, very good. Vivía en las montañas. El emperador azteca vivía en las montañas. The god of the Aztecs would transform people into volcanoes. That's kind of scary. Okay, so what are the gods in Spanish? So los dioses, because it's gods, right? Los dioses aztecas. Okay, so we're going to conjugate transformar for they. So what would transformar be for the they form? Aban, very good. So los dioses aztecas transformaban a las personas en volcanes. So notice that I spelled dioses with a little d because it's mythical gods. These are gods that are in legends. Okay, our last one says, and I'll come back if you need this later, okay? It says each year the warriors of the Aztecs would eat deer in order to celebrate. So each year is cada año los guerreros aztecas comían ciervo para celebrar. Cada año los guerreros aztecas comían ciervo para celebrar. And I'll come back to this slide, but that's going to be the end of the presentation. So let me exit here.